We do have another speaker today talking about her experience as a female on the autism spectrum. Jessica Pigeau is a writer, translator, advocate, and comedian who was diagnosed with autism as a teenager. She grew up in Grand Prairie, Alberta, where she was homeschooled due to bullying. She later attended the University of Alberta, where she received a Master of Arts in French Literature. Jessica was a member of the Self-Advocates Advisory Group for the CASDA, Canadian Autism Partnership, and is now a regular contributor to Autism Around Alberta. She recently performed at the Vancouver Fringe Festival and the All Jane Comedy Festival in Portland. Please join me in welcoming Jessica Pigeau.
There is no slides, there is only darkness. Because I'm not a visual thinker. You'll have to excuse me, I'm very excited. Someone just texted me about French grammar. So happy. She's very sad though. Hello, my name is Jessica. Can everyone hear me at the back? Of course you can, I got a cannon. I am loud. I am also 29 years old. I have been autistic that entire time. And I've been a girl almost as long. I've never been particularly good at it, being a girl that is. I am fantastic at being autistic. Last night I spent 4 hours playing Tetris, and wow, I'm pretty sure that qualifies as a diagnosis in of itself. Like, did you know that there's actually a weird psychological phenomena that comes out of playing Tetris too long? It's where you start hallucinating the blocks slowly falling everywhere, and I've had it on and off since 2003. According to Wikipedia, it's known as the Tetris effect. It's fun. Being a boy is simple. It's restrictive but straightforward. Being a girl is complicated, nuanced, and it's very easy to get it wrong. More than that, it is dangerous being a girl who doesn't know how to talk, how to walk, how to dress. It is difficult being a girl who doesn't know how to navigate a million unstated expectations. Often I have found it easier not to be a girl at all. To dress in suits and shirts over blouses and skirts. To be an odd man rather than an incorrect woman. In turn, people have always seen that eccentricity as a reflection of my ambiguous gender rather than an expression of divergent neurology. To be clear, to be transgender is not inherently to be autistic, and to be autistic is not inherently to be transgender. But there is statistical evidence that people with autism, particularly those assigned female at birth, are more likely to struggle with gender dysphoria. Hi, it's me. That is, an intense discomfort with one's assigned gender role. Rigid social rules are never an autistic's friend, but a failure to match societal expectations of gender has traditionally been particularly harshly punished. I know that sexual and gender issues are considered controversial in some circles, and I likewise know that having a loved one with autism crosses all political bounds. What I would simply say is that strict conformity and autism will always come into conflict, which is why allowing flexibility is so very important, which is why allowing people to be different than you would expect is always so vital. There is obviously a known gap between the expected incidence rates of autism between boys and girls and the actual rate of diagnosis. Girls being severely underdiagnosed. Early researchers assumed that autism was an entirely male phenomenon, with the first study of autistic children being a focus group of 11 boys, the sons of affluent, white, and Ashkenazi Jewish parents. The earliest definitions, the earliest diagnostic tools were developed using primarily or exclusively male populations. Later studies have attempted to correct for this, but they were too reliant on these male-biased definitions and to determine autism in girls and women, which brings us to the question, how much of our understanding of autism still has unrelated assumptions about gender mixed in? I've read several articles about the different presentation of autism in boys and girls. But perhaps the funniest was an explanation of the gendered expression of special interests. That while autistic boys might be interested in trucks and trains and other complex mechanical objects, autistic girls would more likely develop an obsessive interest with animals, music, or fantasy worlds found in literature. Ah, so what you mean is that autistic boys are boys, and that autistic girls are girls. I see. One theory for the diagnostic gender gap is that symptoms such as quietness and social reticence are noticed in boys because they are seen as normal in girls. Another is that the most obvious symptoms of autism are more common in boys, who are more likely to push their frustration outward rather than turning it inward towards themselves. Both of these strike me as true from my own experiences. As a child who would rather read away every recess than try to make friends, whose social isolation manifested as silent, terrified anxiety and morose depression rather than anger or lashing out. A third contributing factor may be the degree to which girls are better at masking their symptoms and passing for normal. And it may have been helpful had I known there was going to be 2 presentations before mine discussing exactly this. I spent a lot of time during the last session going like, I hope she doesn't discuss mental health issues from compounding social isolation, then fuck. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that I pass for normal. That would require the kind of massive behavioral compromise that is acting like a human being. As a child, I had the immense privilege of a family who expected me to be first and foremost myself, rather than strive for some impossible, arbitrary ideal of normalcy. Because normal is value neutral. It is neither good nor bad. Thanking the bus driver and binge drinking in university are normal. And regular blood donation and cannibalism are not. The measure of one's actions should never be their social acceptability or even their frequency. I may not pass for normal, but I've always been very good at disguising exactly what kind of abnormal I was. Sanding off the rough edges until inappropriate becomes merely eccentric. I am a skilled practitioner of the fine art of odd but unthreatening, but I still read as undefinably, ambiguously different, in a way that acquaintances struggle to pin down, leading to an odd game of gay or Jewish. To quote an unusually forthright acquaintance, "Oh, is that what it is? I just thought that maybe this was what lesbians are like." People have actually gotten better at pegging me as autistic over time, as awareness of autism has become more and more widespread. And more people have realized that you can't just say, "Oh, I just thought that that was what lesbians are like." Over my teenage years, I learned how to fake a smile, to mirror facial expressions, to fudge eye contact. And let me inform you all, the average interviewer cannot tell that you've been just staring at their left eyebrow this entire time. They have no idea. And I did this largely independently, both because I had the prerequisite social skills to scaffold this kind of complex interpersonal mimicry, and because I am comparatively socially motivated compared to other autistics. It's unclear why exactly girls tend to be better at masking their symptoms. Whether the cause is social, due to the gendered way that children are raised, whether it is developmental, a result of divergent neurological growth that occurs with sex differentiation, whether it is genetic, a simple result of the increased stability that comes with a backup X chromosome, or whether it is some combination of all three. This difference is to an extent an advantage, one that might result in a better prognosis for young girls diagnosed with autism. A child's precocious interest in fiction might be leveraged for teaching pragmatic social skills. A little girl's obsession with animals can be productively turned to a lesson in empathy and caring. However, an early talent for masking can also result in a failure to diagnose, leaving a struggling child to struggle alone. Often girls with autism can get by without behavioral intervention. But there's a massive difference between getting by and thriving that we've already discussed. Autism for me is a challenge, and likewise a strange and wonderful aspect of my nature. However, the mental health issues I developed due to stigma, social isolation, and late diagnosis and intervention still affect me to this day. You don't just get over 2 decades of interpersonal rejection. Not to brag, but I'm pretty well liked nowadays. I'm even considered somewhat charming. But there will always be a part of me that assumes that no one truly likes me. I didn't have friends growing up. I would have at most 1 or 2 close acquaintances, and would otherwise be entirely dependent on my siblings. One of the masking factors for me was the fact that my younger sister constantly took care of me. We would frequently show up to the swimming pool when I knew we were going to the swimming pool, when I'd been informed days ahead of time that there would be swimming and pools, and I would still have no towel and no swimsuit. My younger sister, at 4 years old, would have 2 sets of each. You know, because she loves me. She takes care of me. She knows I'm... I am also almost constantly anxious, to the point of psychosomatic effects. That is to say, physical symptoms of a psychological condition. Chest and neck pain, hypertension, respiratory difficulties. I have insomnia. I have headaches. Sometimes my neck hurts and I don't know why. Have you ever been so upset that your face hurts? That's weird. I have a comedy competition coming up next week, and I have felt nauseous since October. And not like October the 31st. I mean October 1st. I was getting ready. You guys were all thinking like, oh man, I better get ready for Halloween. I was thinking, what if I just go up on stage and then I puke on myself and everyone laughs, but it's not with me, it's against me. I have fantasies, horrifying fantasies of how much I'm going to mess up. And public speaking gives most people angina, but I'm under the impression that most people also don't, build in dry heaving time into their prep for a public speech. Early intervention isn't just about improving social and self-help skills. It's likewise about providing the kind of supportive environment where children understand what is happening to them, and we avoid compounding mental health issues through neglect. It is more than just fixing something that is broken. It is about letting people know that they are not alone. And when you are a child, and when there is so much about your world that you do not understand, having adults baffled and confused and frustrated with an inherent aspect of not just what you are, but who you are, is incredibly mentally and emotionally damaging. I have often had Parents, friends, acquaintances ask me whether or not, if they knew their child had autism, that they should tell them. And my answer has always been, while I am entirely understanding of the struggle of how much self-knowledge to give your child, my answer has always been, please tell them. Tell them who and what they are. Because there is no self-actualization in confusion. There is no comfort in incomprehension. Self-knowledge is incredibly important. And that is the reason why we need to fill the gap between the diagnosis of girls and boys. Thank you.